We're about to do a live podcast. Who here listens to the Perspective podcast? The Perspective podcast and what Scotty's doing is going all year round, which is something we aren't able to do. And so we started kicking around the idea of a live podcast. I think it scared him from what I understand, but he's like way into it. And I'm excited to do this. I think doing things like this are really great. Without further ado, welcome Scotty.D.Russell to the stage.
The Perspective Podcast is fuel for your mind and creative grind. Each week, my guests and I provide the skills for thinking bigger, overcoming adversity, and making an impact with your work. What's going on? Welcome to the first ever live edition of the Perspective Podcast here at Creative Works 2019. Again, like he said, this scared the shit out of me when he told me about it, and I almost told him no. But if you're like me, you got to do things, chase things that scare you and make it happen, and that's how you unlock growth. So this show is fuel for your mind and creative grind, like it says here, and I'm your host, Scotty.D.Russell of Perspective Collective. Basically, my whole goal, soul, and mission is to help creatives build a killer side hustle outside their day job, and today really go deep on helping freelancers elevate their game. And this is a very special edition. So I got two past guests in the podcast. And we got Rogie King and we got Maggie Enterrios, aka LittlePatterns, but it's one word for SEO, keyword, friendliness. So yeah, they're both.
Where's my fucking SEO?
Rogie King, that's pretty SEO friendly. Just Rogie.
Fine.
Yeah, hey, who has that? But they're both teaching workshops and they're taking time out of their day to help melt faces with as much value as possible. So I would really like to just give them a round of applause in the beginning for taking time to do this. So please give a round of applause. Thank you. Okay, so expectations. This is how it's going to be structured. This isn't going to be a portfolio review at all. We're each going to have kind of a couple Wikipedia page summaries about ourselves. Then we're going to go into the meat of the conversation, and hopefully we have some time for Q&A. If not, come and find us wherever we are. We're more than happy to answer your questions. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, why not? Can I start with an experiment really quick so we know who we're talking to today? I think I can see people in the back. So show of hands, how many of you have some type of side hustle outside of your day job or your full-time commitment? Can I see a show of hands?
Yay.
Yes. Oh my God, cool. This is it for nothing.
33.33% repeating, of course. Nice.
Okay, I'm gonna have you scream now. So, perfect, now I can see everything. At the count of three, I want you to yell what your side hustle is. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Exactly. I think I heard soap carving.
I heard dogs.
Underwater
Dogs?
basket weaving.
Who's doing stuff with dogs?
Dogs.
I heard a dog. No.
That's all right. Okay. Well, the next experiment then. Show of hands, how many of you are freelancers? That's your side hustle, or maybe that's your full-time gig. Show of hands. Freelancers in the house? All right, leave your hands up if you struggle with the business side of things of hourly pricing versus value-based pricing, or contracts and negotiations, licensing, usage right, all that weird shit that we don't want to mess with. All right, cool. Then you're in luck today because today's all about creative side hustling as well as freelancing. So we got some experts here. Starting off, so again, I'm Scotty.D.Russell. I do Perspective Collective. I've been doing this for 5 years. It's my platform to create, teach, and coach under. And it all started with me just putting art on Instagram. I went through a really rough time outside of college, depressed, trying to find my groove. Almost quit art completely and worked at a factory called John Deere in the Midwest. And thankfully, Instagram changed my life, and it gave me kind of the validation to be like, holy shit, I can actually do something with my artwork. And maybe a lot of us are kind of thinking man, do I have what it takes to create and make a creative career out of it? And so that's how I got my start. And then from there, I felt like I had more to say, a message more than just a pretty polished Instagram post. And I'm sure you do too. You're driven to create. And that's when I started blogging. And then nobody read my blog for the first year. It was more just me getting my thoughts out there. At the same time, I started doing freelance. People started paying me to draw, which was wild. And then the blogging ended up leading to public speaking. Public speaking led to teaching workshops. And then that led to doing the Perspective podcast. I've been doing it for 3 years now. And then this year alone, I started doing creative coaching. And that's what really lights me up the most. I have a football background from coaching and stuff. So if you want to know my story, there's plenty of stuff online about it. But what I do at the end of the day is I draw illustrations and hand lettering. What I really want to do is go back to the weird shit that I loved as a kid, like UFOs, aliens, and mesh that with the weird stuff I love today as an adult, like Game of Thrones, pizza, my cats. And I really try to, I'm a cat dad. Any other cat parents here? Oh, yes, you're my people. But that's what I want to do. I want to have some fun. It allows me to show up and create for me at the same time without worrying about what anybody else thinks. It's like how I show my weird. I wave my freak flag. If you're into the same shit I am, then we can vibe and connect. And that's how you build a tribe over time, is just showing up and being yourself. And fun fact about me is that I do all of this. I built all of this outside of a full-time day job. All 5 years of doing this, each one of these steps has all been out of a day job. So I do, a lot of people don't know this maybe, but I'm a senior web designer at a large corporation, and fancy buzzword, UI UX designer. You know, take his workshop if you want to learn more about that. But so I've been doing all of this, and I'm also a hella proud dad. Like, oh my God, I'm a dad, and I could just put in slides on my little baby boy. That's my little pizza roll. That's little Scotty.D.Russell, AKA Trey Money, AKA Dougie Fresh. I have so many nicknames for him. But like that's everything to me. And we're gonna talk about what fuels you later on. But I'm here to make him proud. You know, I said yes to make him proud later in life, and we'll get to that. But you know, that I want to drive home. If you have a day job right now, that's cool. You know, leverage your day job to fuel your dream job. And that's what a lot of this is about. And so maybe you can get on the level of one of these two are at as well, with the day job or doing your thing full time. All right, so that's about me. Let's go to Maggie.
Oh, hi. Am I doing my own intro?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Talk about yourself, yeah.
Well, my name is Maggie Enterrios. I'm a commercial illustrator. So basically everything I create is for the purpose of making money, either for myself or for the companies that I'm creating work for. So I am a full-time illustrator. I don't really do much graphic design these days. I mostly have contractors that work for me. And one of my passions outside of drawing is the business side of art. It's something that I just found I really loved. And in a way, it's like this problem solving that is so different than art. So when you think of like a creative concept, there are many ways that you can approach it. But for me, I like the idea of a mathematical equation being, it has an answer at the end of it. So that's when I got really into talking about like pricing and licensing and contracts, all that, what I would call the nerdy side,
Super
or
nerdy.
the technical
Super
side. It's something that I actually ended up really loving in a weird way. So I guess that's why I'm up here is we nerded out together a few times earlier this year over this stuff, and I would love
Episode
to share
116 down here, she crushes it. It's like one of the most shared and listened to episodes because she just goes nerd out on all your business questions, which we'll do today too. So she's pretty smart. Also, I want to flex on you real quick. Anybody know, oh my God, the lighting, the contrast, not very good.
Nice.
But she just did a bottle illustration, packaging, and branding for, do you guys know who Champagne Poppy is by chance? Okay, that's Drake, for those who don't know. So like, I'll brag for her. Yeah, she just did a whole packaging bottle. How much did you make off that? I'm just kidding. Oh, NBA, okay. Yeah.
So most of my work is in the packaging design side of the industry. And I work in Procreate a lot. I'm teaching the workshop on Procreate on Saturday if anybody has interest.
Who's all going to the Procreate workshop?
Yeah.
Me too, I'll be there. Cool.
So that's I came from a background in advertising. I was working in-house as an art director, and I ended up leaving that job and going full-time self-employment. So that's my brief story, and I think we'll get into that. But
cool.
Hit it, Rogie.
I'm Rogie. If you have not heard of me, you should know of me. And if you haven't, would you please applaud now? Thank you. Thank you. This has been my TED Talk. Okay, so I dabble. This is part of why I do stuff on the side. Is like I do all kinds of things. I've always been like super ADHD, both in the sense, but also in sort of just the like scattered and always interested in a ton of different things. So I started off as a math CS double major and did programming for a long time, wanted to program for video games, got into the web, was a web programmer, server side, then went front end development, then went design, fell in love with design, taught myself design. Like at age 30, I was like, holy shit, I love art and why did I lose art? And I want to get back to it. And I had this like epiphany in Disneyland where I was crying looking at fireworks. That's probably happened to you all, I get it, I'm with you. But I started getting back into art and it brought so much life back into my life. And so as a result of that, started doing a lot of artwork. And then where business on the side hits is I started selling prints and I aligned with a buddy named Justin Mazzell, who may or may not be in the room. He's not in the room, thanks for showing up, bud.
What the hell, Justin?
And so Justin Mazel and I challenged ourselves to create a little company called Super Team Deluxe, and that's probably most of why I'm here to talk to you about like passion projects, side projects, and just like getting into something and maybe building with other people, but doing something on the side that makes you happy. I have 3 kids, so guess what? I have a full-time job. So, but this kind of stuff makes me super happy, and we get to get weird, we get to do stupid stuff, and we get to make the kind of things we want to make. And we've made some money, and we've lost a shit ton more of money at this thing. I also just kind of do fan art, and I attempt to procreate. These drawings are definitely a good example of why you should take Maggie's workshop and not mine. But like, yeah, I just love cartoony, zany shit. Like all the stuff that I did when I was a kid, that's my internet hat from Super Team Deluxe. But yeah, I'm always curious, and I'm always sort of like spinning off projects and stuff like that and trying to come up with new cool things. I just created an event called Design House where I brought a bunch of designers together to try to like connect and bond, and so I'm always like diversifying. I want to make a tiki bar pretty soon, so like I really am constantly curious. That's me.
Conversation starters for tonight too. Hot sauce addict, raised in a cult, listens to 14-year-old pop music, so conversation starters, in case you want to talk to him.
He referred to Britney Spears earlier as Brit. Just casually in conversation.
I mean, I know her, like I follow her, and so we like, sometimes I DM her on like Instagram, but she's busy right now, so she doesn't DM back.
Rogie's also really talented at drawing avatars and character designs, and Rogie, explain this one.
Oh yeah, so when I did the podcast.
Where did this come from again?
This is Scotty.D.Russell, the Love Muscle. It rhymes. It rhymes. This is from the podcast, and I wanted to make a little love offering, you know, to Scotty, and so this is him. But he's also very muscular, and so it just feels like it fits. Yeah.
I thought it was great, but yeah, I couldn't remember where it came from, but that's okay, it was the podcast. It wasn't Creative Works in 2017.
We were trying to do art to promote our podcast episode. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I couldn't remember if that was from Creative Works or not, but fun stuff. So let's get into the meat of it. So speaking of passion projects, I know for me, passion projects have changed my life. It started off like when I got out of college, I did a t-shirt company with my buddy. You know, we thought we were gonna be all over the place, PacSun, whatever it was. And it went for 4 years. It went really, really well, but hey, clearly I'm not doing it anymore. But it taught me a lot of things like marketing, promotion, being consistent, experimenting, being intentional with my time. And at the end of that is when I started Perspective Collective in 2014. And then I did like some Instagram lettering things like lyrics from my favorite rappers, little mini series. And then the podcast, this has been like my biggest passion project to date. And just sticking with it, even though it sucked in the beginning. Like it took me 4 or 5 months to finally hit publish. One, because I was playing way too much Pokemon Go. And the other one was just because I was so scared of what people were gonna think, you know, the imposter syndrome, not being good enough. Like what if nobody listens? And nobody freaking listened for like the first 6 months to a year. It didn't take off until like 2 years, 2.5 years. Now 3rd year, it's doing really well. But for me, this has become like the lifeline, the foundation. Everything of my side hustle business, Perspective Collective, all flows through this. This is the vessel, the marketing platform. And it was just a passion project. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this. So that's the power of it for me. But like, let's go with Maggie first, because I think you got into like drop caps in the beginning or something like that. So I'd love to hear how you got started with passion projects, and maybe how do you leverage them today to not only like get clients or potential build community. You know, so I'd love to hear that, and we'll go to Rogie next.
Yeah, so I was working as a full-time art director, and I worked for Grubhub, if anyone's familiar with that company. So most of my work was like cartoon illustration, which is pretty different than what I do now, and creating banner ads and, you know, all the things that come along with that. And I desperately knew that I wanted to go into full-time illustration, but it was so dauntingly far out. And also my entire portfolio just didn't reflect what I wanted to do in any way. I mean, what I really had to show was a style that was not my own at all. And I was just so sick of that.
Was it just the cartoon ones?
Yeah.
Cartoon illustrations that you were showing all the time? Got it.
Which like just wasn't, I mean, that's just not the style I wanted to work
I'm
in.
offended, but
yeah, I know.
fine.
We're gonna have to talk about that later. But what I found that I needed to do, so I was applying for these jobs, and I was like looking on Craigslist and Chicago Artist Resource, which is where I was living at the time, and everybody's like, oh, maybe, you know, we need an illustrator, and all I could send them was stuff that was not what I knew I wanted to do, or it was like poorly lit hobby photos of my illustrations. So I decided like I have to cut this out, and I have to build a portfolio that actually feels like the jobs I want to get. And the only way I could figure that was, okay, well, I have to pretend that I'm hiring myself to do something. So I started this drop cap project probably in 2014, I think. And I didn't have much time. Like, I was really tired at the end of the day, got home from work, didn't really want to do anything other than like have a glass of wine on the couch and decompress. But instead, I just knew that if I hustled at that point and really put just as much effort into that work that I would put into my future clients' work, that I could do it. So, it took me like 2 or 3 weeks to draw each letter. But by the time I got to L, which we've talked about before, by the time I got to L, I had gotten projects based on every other letter in the alphabet.
What was the span of time from A to L?
Like a year. Like,
Okay.
it took a while.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and how much time do you put in
You gotta believe in
a
that.
typical piece?
Yeah.
So she puts like 50 hours into an illustration.
Yeah, they're super detailed. And at
Yeah.
the time, it was just like, it was the early stages of exploration of that style. It was something that like I could see when I closed my eyes at night. I was like, I just want to be able to create this thing that I can see that's like super complex and detailed. But I didn't I didn't have the time like I do now. Like, I can sit down now and draw a 30-hour piece over 2 to 3 days. But at that time, it's like 2 hours on a Tuesday, 1 hour on a Saturday. So it took a really long time.
Right.
And I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have anything other than, I had like Behance, which was great, but it was
You were
my
doing
only
analog.
project on there.
This was
and
pre-iPad or analog?
This is pre-iPad, yeah. But I created this project that just became like my baby and my passion project. And that is like completely the start of my career, which was just this thing that I decided to take extraordinarily seriously. And that passion project led to everything
Leveraged a body of work. What about you?
So it didn't pay off for like a year? Is that right?
else. Oh,
you
like
didn't...
at least, yeah.
So like halfway through, I'm just curious, were you like, fuck it, like I guess this isn't doing it? Or were you getting signals along the way like,
Little
people are
omens.
liking it, like people are like,
I
how
didn't
did you...
have that at that point. Like,
'Cause
I
there's
didn't
no
have
Instagram.
I
So
didn't
it's
have
just
an online
internally
community.
driven.
Yeah, no, I didn't have that. But what I had was like A through E. And at that point, me being me, I was like, well, I can't stop at E. Like, that would be ridiculous. So I just kind of kept going. And then eventually I found ways to post them online, and like the traction built from
Were
there.
you blogging at the time? I'm just curious. Were you on a website putting these things up, or
Behance.
but like
But I
hardly
put it
any
in
engagement?
one project,
Yeah.
like it should have been like A.
So, like all the
B.
letters in one project
Yeah,
done.
it
Yeah,
was
you
really
should have like
poorly
noted
executed.
it.
It's still up there under that format.
So did you still just get through L to this day?
Yeah, I haven't. I never made it past there, but that passion project did it.
Wow.
Did you have one?
Incredible.
What about you?
What was the question? Did I have a passion project that kind of...
I know you have a couple here.
Yeah. I would say like Super Team Deluxe really was one that, so my issue, and maybe there's a lot of commonality here with you, Maggie, is that my issue was that I always had ideas, but I have ADHD, but like I also I act this way all the time. Like I have folders on folders on folders of started ideas, and maybe that's everyone. But like these started ideas that like never came to anything. And I looked back on like 5 years of like work, and it was like, I got nothing. I have nothing to show for this except for a lot of like little popcorn things. And so I was thinking to myself, like, how can I like, one thing has to be, like the one thing I have to do is dig my heels in and actually commit to something. And the only way that I felt I could do that is if I got another person involved in it, where like we could be, it's like a gym partner, you know, like an accountability
totally.
partner, like, hey, let's go to the gym.
You
like,
know about that, I'm sure.
yeah, so I felt like my gym partner,
Got someone to spot you. Yeah.
that's right. My gym partner was another chubby dude like me, so we decided to
Creatively fit though.
creatively
Wow.
fit right up here. And so we would flex on these things in the night. And so flex way into the night. But Justin was sort of like that accountability partner for me, and what we ended up doing is like, the cool thing is that we ended up creating like a full, like we were working for a client. What's our brand story? What's our statement? Who do we want to be? How do we want to represent ourselves? We want everyone to be included in this club. We want it to be like a treehouse for kids. We want it to be fun, and we want to put our arms around the design community. We want to make jokes. We feel like everything's too serious in this world, and we just want to have fun, and we want to like do that. And so we created all these statements, all these words. We created Super Team Deluxe, and then we started like peddling wares and goods, and like taking any opportunity that we can get, Justin self-admittedly did not know how to like cold call or ask people. I'm shameless, I'll ask anybody anything. So it was a great match. And so like I would be like, can we put our stuff at your conference? And can we sell this stuff? Will you like include this on your blog or whatever? And so we ended up showing up to a conference, and we had like,
Creative South?
we had, Creative South. That was the one that originated the idea. The first time we launched our store after Creative South, we gave ourselves a date, August by this date, but we had to stay committed for like 6 months to launch this store. We had 6 products. All the ones that Justin designed sold out. I still have a pin that is not sold out. It's a Cobra pin, so if you want it, it's cool. It's fucking cool. But we learned a lot of lessons, and we stayed committed. And I think the commonality here with you, Maggie, is like we had to like commit to a vision, get something organized for ourselves. We were our own client. We had to make sure we gave that due process, and we had to make sure we saw it out. Super Team definitely has seen years of success of really making good money. We wanted to push it into another area where we were like, can we like actually get full-time jobs out of this? It didn't quite work out that way just yet, but it's okay. It's okay, and I think we'll talk about this later, which is like, it's okay for Justin and I to have full-time jobs being design directors and whatnot for our companies, but at the same time, still, like, why can't we have both? It's okay to have both. We have families, we have very real needs, we have kids, these things, we need insurance. It's okay. It's okay to have both and still do these passion projects. So that's kind of how ours took off, and then we got some feedback, people loved it, and we just kept on going.
One main thing that you set a date, you set some sense of urgency. I'm big into SMART goals, and that's
right.
like a corporate thing, but you setting the time for anybody who has an idea and you're just struggling to make that shit happen. For me too, it was 4 months, again, the Pokemon Go and imposter syndrome. It wasn't until I was like, you know what, I gotta get this out August 19th, arbitrary date, and I was like, I will have 4 episodes out this day, at this time, on this, and that's what really set a fire under my ass. So if there's something that you wanna do, give yourself a deadline, because the trap of tomorrow, I can do this, but you'll find an excuse. You'll dive deep in your bag of excuses, but like setting that date, that was what changed it for me, and maybe that's what can help you actually get the tires running. So
that was the catalyst for me. Like, we would have watched like endless episodes of Schitt's Creek and never actually got to the work. But we literally said, like Justin and I said, August, this date is go live date. If it doesn't happen, we will never ever talk to each other again about creating a project together. Like, we basically built in a bomb that would go off that would destroy everything.
A bong or bomb?
I mean, nowadays I wish it was a bong, but but back then it was a bomb. Like, we just said, like, if we don't reach this go live date, then we just like, we're gonna be friends. It's gonna be great, but we're not gonna build things together. Done.
I did not have a hard date, but what I had was, I told myself that if I could get to 15 hours of freelance a week, then I would trust myself to make my next career move.
You set a target.
So a target rather than like a date.
Yeah.
And
same stuff. Yeah. Perfect.
It, like having that goal.
Another hack.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So talking about full time, a lot of us probably aspire to do. How many of you aspire to do your thing full time, your passion project full time? I know I do. And if you don't, that's totally okay. You don't have to feel the pressure. For me, I'm at a day job because I'm supposed to during this season. I'm supposed to be at this day job. We're paying off debt. I went to a private school to play football, and it all went away. Here I am with this mountain of debt, but I'm supposed to be here for that consistency. But leverage it, fuel it for my my dream job. Leverage that. So you used to do full-time freelance, right, Rogie? But you are happily working at Dribble right now. You do this
so
by,
I jumped.
You choose
I
to do
jumped.
this. Yeah, but you're not a businesswoman, you're a businesswoman. It doesn't work the same doing that, the Jay-Z thing, but does anybody know what I'm talking about here? Okay, but you could have the option, you're not really freelance, you're your own business now. So what are some of the pros and cons of doing full-time yourself versus like having that steady paycheck? And why do you choose to do what you do? And what are some of the learning experiences along the way? And then I'd like to talk to you about like, why do you choose the day job? So people can relate to that. Because not everybody can relate to you and not everybody can relate to you.
Yeah.
Can I ask for a quick hack? Can you push your chair back just a bit and like,
let's
can we
do
go
it.
like this? Because I just want it to feel like a real conversation.
Am I
and
good?
Not like I can't see you
This
and
is
I don't know
better.
what the hell you're
I
saying.
wish I was
like,
flexible to cross my
your
legs.
hair's there, but your lips
Comfortable.
aren't
That's
moving.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
it's better. It feels.
Great.
We still see you guys.
Hopefully you're still in the
Really
camera view.
Sorry.
Yeah, I might be out. It's okay.
Full-time self-employment.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I knew that was the only path for me because the work that I want to do is so very specific that I knew, like, I know that it's not possible to get a full-time job doing that. Like, I know it's not. And so I had to figure out, like, well, I'm gonna have to build this for myself. And most of the time I spent building that was figuring out, how the hell do I run a business? Like, I don't know anything. Like,
How many can relate to that?
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing for me, was like, well, I can draw. Like, I know I can draw. But how do I manage my time? How do I manage clients? How do I how do I send a brief? Like, this kind of stuff that I only was on the other side of, and I was only the recipient of those things, but I was hiring freelancers. So I was seeing their pitches come in. I was seeing how much they were charging. I was like, I'd make friends with a couple of them while we were working together, and I would ask them, like, hey, are you like incorporated? Like, what do you do? Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of started picking up those little nuggets of information and figuring out the pieces that fit together, which is a pro and a con. Like, it's not easy, and I can't stress that enough. Like, there's so much stuff and so many like layers of complications, and there's a lot more on the line. Like, I don't have kids like you guys, so, and I'm not really even sure that I would have had the emotional strength to take a leap like that if I was really caring for somebody else, because it's super scary. Like, to me, it was like, well, if I fail, I fail. Mm-hmm. You know, there wasn't that much responsibility on top of it, which I have to note that. Like, I was able to make that kind of reckless decision before I was ready, just because I didn't have the consequences. But with that being said, it was the best decision I ever made. I think that I'm able to give my life a lot more balance than I did before I had when I was doing the split of full-time plus freelance. I know that I'm somebody that can control their own time. I know that I can give myself, I can plan out my week and figure out when I can work best. I don't work well midday. I work early in the morning and I work late at night.
Where your most willpower is, like.
Yeah, when I was in an office, it's like I hit my 2 p.m. crash and I'm like worthless.
Yeah.
So now I just hang during those hours, and I let that be my creative processing time, and then I actually get to work later. So just building that part of the schedule was
What were some of the things that tripped you up early on that I think a lot of people who are really trying to elevate their side hobby to a side hustle to a side business, like, what are some of those things in the beginning that you struggled with that you had to just adapt and respond to? A failed brief, or like maybe someone didn't pay you, or.
Yeah, all of that for sure, but the biggest thing to me was the accountability. Like, I am the only person that's going to be able to answer those emails. Like, when I worked in an office, if I had other graphic designers and other art directors, so I could say something like, oh shit, that we have to get that contractor paid. Like, will you hand that off to billing? And like, having that delegation just isn't there for me now.
It's still not now, right? You don't have representation like some people do.
Yeah, no, I don't have an agent or anything like that. So like, every inquiry that comes in is my responsibility. And for someone that I can't handle having a full inbox and people that I'm disappointing by not getting back to them, that part's really tough. Like, there's no one that I can really ask to do that.
You put your husband to work now, though, don't you?
He does, yeah.
Yeah, keep your status. What about you? Why do you choose to do the full-time grind?
So do a full-time job as opposed to just like jumping back out again.
Because you did freelance,
Yeah.
like, what's your choice? Why did you?
I mean,
want to go back?
in like non-attractive, non-super public speaker inspirational speech, like, honestly, insurance is nice, and like, it's like, I got 3 kids, and like, it's a single income home for the most part for us, and like, you were saying this too, like, I think what's important about the way that we talk about like hustle and all these things is that we need nuance. Like, it's not important to preach just hustle, hustle, hustle. This destroys people's lives.
Yeah, don't burn the candle from both ends. I've been there, and it burnt me out, and I'm just like, I can't even get up to create.
We become shells of humans. I've done this too. I've struggled with my own sort of pit of mental illness with this stuff. Staying up too late at night, not getting enough sleep, like I knew I need people. I'm a social being, and like, I didn't get that because I was going after that. But nobody says that. Nobody says that in this industry. They just say things about like, oh, go hustle, go get it, and everybody is just pumping all their shit onto Instagram and everybody's winning at the game.
Bragging
and you're
about
doing
not
nothing
sleeping.
but comparing
that's not
yourself
cool.
to everyone, knowing that you need to do the same thing. And like, it's horrible. It's horrible. And like, what's better is to say like, nuance is important in the way that we speak about these things. So for me, I have very real needs at home. I need stability that way. I need to have some insurance, and I want to work with a team. And I have really, really amazing skills within design that I can use for Dribbble. And I want to use that because that impacts a lot of people that I love, a lot of my designer people that I like. I want to make the network a better network for us. And so I'm bringing that passion into it. But for me, I'm a person of like dual or like more passions. Like I can be both. So that's kind of what's fueling this is like, why can't I have both? Why can't I, that's been everything. Why can't I be a math, CS, design, art, all this person? Why can't I run my own bar? Why can't I do anything I want to? And that's what's informing this. It's me dabbling in like exploring life and just like jumping out into deeper waters and like, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? And you were saying like something that kind of hit, which was, when you're asking friends about things and saying like, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? Like that's to me like a little bit of a recipe for success. If you're curious, if you ask, like shamelessly ask anyone. Like I didn't get invited to a lot of the things that I create. Like I remember sitting outside the Good Old Boys Club wanting to be in the Good Old Boys Club and never getting an invite. But instead, I created the Good Old Boys Club for myself. And I think that's more important is like, ask for yourself the things that you want. So like with Super Team, I just like cold call people and like, how do you do, like I'm probably not as good at business as you, but I definitely like would ask people like, what do I do here? How do I do this? And like, you'd be amazed at how many people will give into that.
To create a community around this is special. Like
and
everybody's
people are like
willing to help.
surprisingly kind and like willing to help.
The answer's always no if you don't ask.
Yeah.
I've learned that.
Big on asking.
Big on asking.
Something else. If I get a lot of things like, man, I work at a job that I just hate, and it ruins the life or all the motivation is sucked out of me for when I get home to work on something else. And that's what I would say. Probably like find a new job. Like if my job didn't complement,
right, the job still has to be like fulfilling in and of itself.
Like if I didn't have a job that complemented the kind of side hustle I'm doing, the smart hustle that I'm doing at home that complemented my lifestyle, I would quit that job immediately and just start going delivering pizzas. Like I would do that if it meant that I had my dream on the side that I can pour my time and energy and even money into. That's more important to me is my dream job, and everything needs to like funnel to that and support that. So if you have a job that's like sucking you dry from wanting to create outside of it, maybe it's time you need to pivot and go get something else that complements what you want to build for yourself.
Like a relationship.
Exactly. That's perfect.
How
Dump your day job.
I want to hear. How is it like a relationship?
Well, if it's like dead, if it's just dying and you're holding on to it because you think you need it, you probably should be in a new relationship or at a new job.
Are we gonna cry?
Damn, Dr. Phil.
No.
It's good.
And
when it's over. It's just
when
time
it's over. My
to
God.
move on.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, loved Grubhub. It was still one of the best experiences of my entire life. But by the end, I was doing the too hard hustle, and I was just killing myself, and I was like losing friendships, and didn't have time for anything. And I was like, well, I can see this path where I keep doing this or I change it. And so I left Grubhub and got a job at another company as an art director where I didn't really care as much. And I was able to just put up a wall and be like, this is my job and the job that I'm gonna leverage to get to where I wanna get. And it allowed that fresh start for me to reframe. I wasn't coming home and like complaining about Christina at work. Like it was.
Fuck Christine.
There's always one. It just allowed me to reframe and restart and like choose my goals ahead of time.
I think there's an interesting bit of nuance there too, which is like you could go to a job that maybe like there are no like prescriptive formulas. We're not preaching here. This isn't gospel. Like you can potentially go to a job with an intention of saying like, I need to kind of detach and like I need to pour into this and this is sucking out of me. So like I will be, like a bellhop or whatever the thing is that makes you detach. Like bellhop was a weird word. I don't know.
Pizza delivery.
Like this is coming from the recesses of my little homeschooled brain.
Valet or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's old movies, a lot of old movies. But like maybe there's like a for some of my friends, like we talk about a lot of these kinds of things, and so sometimes I'm like, very real advice that I'm giving to some of my friends is like, well, maybe you just like, have you considered like becoming a bartender or a waiter for right now? Then pouring into the passion, but like as a bartender or waiter, you can kind of get those tips and that like that quick money to kind of get you where you want to. It's a temporary step, and that's okay. I think that's what's important about what you said. It's like there's nuance here. It's not just like you have to love this, you have to love that. There can be a plan.
Yeah, everybody thinks they're supposed to love every part of it.
Well, yeah, we preached it for like 10 years in the design community,
Yeah.
like, and we didn't give nuance to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the nitty-gritty stuff of business. So pricing, you lately, so I have a little bit of a Facebook group, and people always have like pricing questions, and Maggie just comes in there and just blows everyone's
Every
mind.
once in a while, sometimes I want them to
Figure it out. But you come in there and just like, wow, I didn't even think about that. And I think it's really important. A lot of people are like trying to find their hourly rates. You know, they want to charge hourly, and I'm in the camp of value-based pricing. You can burn yourself when you charge hourly for something. You can leave a lot of things on the table. So one, let's just get into like, how do you differ between the two? Why do you do one? And then how are creatives, since you had like an art directing role, how are people leaving money on the table by not doing value-based pricing and following up with more questions? Or who struggles when asking for a budget? Yeah, like when do you ask for a budget? So I would love for you to like take what you were talking about in there and just expand upon it. Like why value-based pricing, when to ask for a budget, and how to not leave money on the table.
All right, that's a lot, but
Yeah, just
I'm
make
gonna-
it happen quick.
Can you
though.
teach us all the things you
Yeah,
have?
okay,
You
we-
have 2 minutes.
We still have a couple questions left.
I'm
so.
gonna try to do this. So I worked as an art director, which I know
I'm going to interrupt you really quick. Sorry about that. I want to make sure I get this slide real quick. So in our episode with her, this is like the Freelancer's Bible. Hold that thought. I don't want to forget
No,
it and
you're
have to
good.
fly through it. This book, everybody keeps asking a question about this book. This is what she referenced a lot. This was like what she learned a ton from. So if this is something you think, as she continues to talk, take a photo of this, like if you're iOS, and it'll scan the QR code and automatically take you to Amazon. Look at that. They're doing it. Does it work? It worked at home.
What's happening?
Oh, Rogie's
in
Domsky's
front
in the
of it?
way. Let me know if that works. Does that work for
it
anyone
work?
when you
I
scan
don't
it?
know.
It worked,
Oh,
yes.
boy.
All right, thought of that last minute. But anyway, take a photo of the slide. But if you're really vibing to what she's saying, you really want more of this content, you know, this is the Bible that she talks about. So you can scoot back in now.
Let's go. Y'all done with the QR?
Sorry to interrupt. I want to make sure I get that. I apologize.
No, okay.
Continue.
So what I was going to
Hold
say.
on.
Don't
I'm
do
just
it.
kidding.
I am not trying to distract. He
I'm
called
sorry.
me out on this.
Continue.
So as an art director, I was getting quotes from other artists. And that's when I really started to like pick up and learn basic terminology. And what I learned the most was that nobody was asking me the questions that I had the answers to. And so my companies were always a little different. Like I know, you know, I didn't work in an agency, so I can't speak to that. But I know that working in-house, like I had a pretty keen idea of what the budget was that I was allowed to hire for. And I would email off, I would cold call other artists, mostly photographers, and ask them, you know, what will you charge on this project? And I would send a nice brief, which is always the best way to receive anything. And they would write back and like say, oh, $1,800. I was like, ooh, okay. So they didn't ask about licensing. They didn't ask how long I wanted to use their photographs for. They didn't ask what I was using their photographs for. They didn't ask like what the campaign was other than what was in the brief, which usually was designed to be like the most aspirational version of the project. And we were doing a lot of like out-of-home billboard campaigns, things that were pretty huge. And you know, I feel a little conflicted because if it was somebody I really wanted to work with that maybe just didn't ask me those questions, I'd say like, okay, well, I got them. I got them for cheap, but I got them. And that's something I learned when I went on the flip side, was ask every question that you need to answer in order to price accurately. So the way I price currently, so all of my artwork is licensed. I don't do any work for hire. And I price based on an artwork creation fee plus an artwork value fee. So the first one of those is how much I personally charge for the artwork. and whether that is a calculation of your hourly fee.
Private hourly
Yeah.
rates.
Oh, yeah.
Don't tell anybody your hourly
No.
rate.
But I mean, it covers your labor. It covers your materials. All of the cost to you, whether that is manual labor or
Mental
all
or missing family time. or
all of
something
That's
that,
right,
like
yeah.
that item, that is how much it is worth to you. And then the value
that's good.
to the project, which is, do they want it for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? Is this a small company that's producing 500 units? Is this a global company that's producing 75,000 units year one, and then they don't know what they want to do the next year?
How do you know what the amount of units? Do you just ask
I
them?
ask.
You just ask.
Yes.
Okay.
So usually someone sends me a brief, and it's like, okay, we want to do this milk carton, and we want like 3 flavors of milk, and what will you charge for an illustration? And I write back and say like, oh, well, thank you so much for thinking of me. Like, love your idea.
I love milk.
Questions. I would like to build out my quote, but let me ask you some questions. Number 1, like, can you tell me a little bit more about your company? Is this the first time you're producing milk? Do you have a parent company that I should be aware of? Like, where are you distributing this milk? Like, all of these are things that need to be calculated in. Like,
it's super smart.
And it seems daunting, but it's like every question, you have to not get excited when someone wants your work. Like, you get so stoked, like, oh my God, someone wants to hire me, that you just are like, $1,000. Like, but you need to just write them back, say thank you.
Wow.
I'll have a list of questions to you within the next few hours, and then just sit with it and think, okay, is this a big company? Research the company, research their distribution, research like what agencies they've worked with in the past to create designs. Like, all of these little minutia of questions you're allowed to ask them.
You should write a book.
Well, there is.
Have you considered writing a book?
There is a book.
This does not go
Does
into
this
the
cover kind
emotional
of the-
side of things.
But does this cover all the questions?
There's some when it comes to like terminology, that's where it's the most helpful. So this book basically, it's mostly like illustration, and it includes a lot of different topics of illustration. There's some animation in there as well, which I've never looked through because I don't do that. But where it is helpful to me is there are line items that are basically like, oh, you are designing a textile pattern for limited distribution. Here's the range that they are charging in America this year for that kind of work. And that is the value side of the equation. That's not what it took you to produce it either. So like something like this is such a good jumping off point. Just like if you read through it, learn the terminology. Like people, throw a lot of words your way and they try to trip you up because that was my job. Like I needed to budget well, and I needed to do a good job, and I needed my creative director to be like, hey, great, like now we can take that extra budget and we can run it on a few more bus stops, whatever. But it to me was about like, I need the answers so that I can build out how much that is worth to them. And it's not about like swindling them into paying you more. It's about the value that they see in the work. If they're producing something that they want to make $20 million on, of course they're not going to pay you $1,000. Like that's not how much you should be charging for a project that big. And likewise, if it's like a really small company and this is their first attempt at doing something, they only want to do it for a year, you better not charge them an arm and a leg because you're all kind of in that growth together.
Out of curiosity, with that, like, do you ever just like find a company that you're like, oh, I align with this, like I want to support this, and there's almost like a charitable side
Absolutely.
where you're like,
You want
I
this.
will
Yeah.
lessen
Really
my rate or like whatever. Like,
Yes.
Can you speak to that? Because I would love to hear that.
Definitely. I mean, I can like talk about pricing all day, but like I am human, and there are things that I would love to have in my portfolio that, I'm not doing I have bad luck doing cold calls for. Like I've been wanting to get into like the beer and liquor scene for so long.
Dude,
and
all of us.
Yeah, I know.
All of us.
And I had some really good opportunities, but they just weren't leading to that next
Have you ever
opportunity.
considered about designing for my tiki bar?
I did. Well, when you said it, I got excited. People over here probably saw
That's
how
great.
stoked I was on that.
Thank you over here.
Yeah, earlier this year, or maybe late last year, I had a company come to me it was like a brand new alcohol company, and I was like, yes, 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 yes. It came through like a reputable agency. I was so excited. And when it came down to it, their budget was like so low. But I had a talk, so they ended up, basically the agency dropped out because the budget was so low. And I ended up hooking up directly with the owner of the company, and we agreed on like creative autonomy. So rather than having, it's like, I mean, I still got paid, but I did not get paid for what it was worth, but I got creative autonomy. So I basically got to take his
That's
vision
huge, though.
and do
That's
what I
huge.
wanted with
do your
it.
thing.
No edits were allowed.
Right,
Like
you're
we
an
set the
artist at this
ground
point.
rules.
Yep.
So there was no way that I was gonna feel like he was taking advantage of my time because I set the rules for that low fee and it mutually benefited all of us. So like I got that in my portfolio.
Is
Yeah, I
that
didn't-
in the book though?
No.
Okay, you should write a book.
Maggie's book.
All right.
Make an ebook, a
Once
lead
again,
magnet,
can you
build
write
an
a
email
book?
list. There
I
you
mean,
go.
we all are going to do projects that we don't want to do, and we're all going to do projects for less than we deserve to make for them. But I try to make it so that if I'm not going to make as much, at least I'm getting a lot of personal gratification out of it. Like, not exposure,
Smart.
but like personally, I'm going to be so proud to put that in my portfolio. And I know it's going to drive more work my way. Like, that's a decision you have to make in that moment. Like, is it going to be worth it?
She's a beast, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yeah. I wish we could talk
Thanks.
all day about
Sorry.
that, but we're kind of running short on time. And this is an important question that I get asked a lot, and I think it's good to challenge all of ourselves. So kind of piggybacking off this event of Driven to Create. And I'm going to ask them, but at the same time, like, I want to come back and challenge you. I'm going to give you some homework for this, for the rest of the event and, you know, going on to next year. But I want to ask you guys, what drives you to create? What's your why? What gets you so stoked to get out of bed each day, to get up to the plate and keep swinging, even when there's those rough, shitty patches you got to deal with? Yeah, what's your fuel? And there's two sources from it. You got an internal source and an external source.
I don't know about sources. Like, what am I?
Okay,
Do
it's your world. What fuels you?
Okay, I don't know how to answer the question.
Kids?
Internal sources like food. I put the food into my body. Like, is that what you're talking about? Like,
Sassy.
okay, now you messed it up. Okay, so what fuels me is like, it's just like what's in my heart. Like anything that like, it's nostalgia. It's like love for like the shit I grew up, like a magic moment in my life. You know, like when everything was perfect, when I would watch like certain Disney movies and like the lines and the style and the shape, like it was all in this era, and I just love it. Like, but there were movies that I would watch from like the 1920s, 1930s style that like they just, I don't know what's up with it. It's like when you listen to music, you can explain why it connects, but it does, and you just want to do more of it. And so for me, that's what connects with art. Like, I just want to create shapes in the way that I feel the happiest. I was a kid, I used to draw. I don't know why I did it, but I did it. And so what's most important is to like find the voice and obey the thing. But like, I think a lot of like therapy work, like internal work, trying to figure out who you are is so fucking important. That will inform like the best form of like a fire inside of you that can go off and make things and do things. So that fuels me, like, probably primarily. I wish that I was a better dad, but I would just say that, like, my kids, like, as far as, like, I would want to say, like, I want to be a role model to my kids, and I want to, like, I don't know if I think about that as much. I more think about, like, me living my best life and being, like, just amped fully about everything in life will trickle down. Like, I grew up in a church system where there's a lot of preaching, but not a lot of doing. And I think I just kind of like, I lean to the other side, which is like, if I just do and I just act and behave, and then my kids they'll catch on because dad's fucking cool. And like, we like to hang out with dad and it's fun. Look at dad doing this cool stuff. So I'll find out, you know, when we're in therapy sessions with my kids later, we'll figure this out. But yeah, I think just figuring out who I am and what I love and just like diving into it, and it may not make a lot of money, but like, yeah.
I was trying to listen and not do that thing when you think of your own answer when somebody else was talking. Like, so I was really trying, I haven't thought about it yet, but.
That's honestly thanks. I
It was
appreciate
a
that
beautiful
level of like
answer.
attention.
You know icebreakers when you're just waiting to say your two truths and a lie, and you like, you don't listen to
Is that
anybody
what
else?
this
That was one of
podcast
her
is
fun
going to?
facts, too. Is
Oh,
that
actually, yes.
one of
and
the
a
fun
lie.
facts was like, I suck at icebreakers.
I just try to be present, and then I forget to think of my own answer. What drives me? I think there's something motivational about failure and not letting it be the guide of what happens next in your life. So what I will say is, I remember like maybe a year ago, my husband came home from work and I was like kind of bummed. And he was like, what happened? And I was like, well, I lost out on a big project today. And he was like, you know, I hate to tell you, but you're gonna have to get used to this. Like, this is part of the creative process. And I was like, excuse me? Like,
Is this the first time you experienced mansplaining or not?
Oh yeah, one of them.
Okay.
I know.
Just wondering.
I was like, do you realize how often people tell me no or just ignore me? Like, there was a time where I sent 109 emails looking for an agent, and one person wrote back to tell me no. Everybody else just ignored me. Like, failure is the constant. And I think the thing that drives me is almost seeing like, how can I move forward and just have laser focus on the successes and let those failures just weave into the story of my life in a way that they build me up, they don't hold me back. And that drives me to keep like shooting for the successes, but like embracing the fail. Like, it's a holistic approach, I guess. It's like, how does this design life work in a holistic way where it doesn't drive me crazy at the end, and I can still live the rest of my life loving what I do without the burnout and without letting the bad stuff hit me.
I mean, it seems like that's certainly true for both of you, in the sense that like you had to like hustle on this podcast for a long time without seeing, you're not getting necessarily the likes or the retweets or the whatever to give you a signal back to be like, this is good. So you have to believe in it. It has to be like, okay, you get the question too. Your time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Were you listening or were you thinking?
Listening.
No, I'm curious.
I was
really curious.
soaking this up. Yeah, this is great.
Well, let us soak in.
Then soak this
I'm
up.
sorry for what I said.
All right.
sorry for
they're
the
gonna
thing.
get emails.
All right.
Sorry
So
for the things.
in the beginning, I think the external sources, you know, so I grew up, I got picked on and bullied a lot. I didn't have that acceptance, and I always really was chasing that. I always wanted to be accepted, so I became a people pleaser to get that. And a lot of my work early on, when I started finding my groove on Instagram, was all tailored to like, oh my God, I hope somebody else there likes this. I hope I was chasing the glory. You know, so when you get those likes, those retweets, or I got my first fucking feature on Good Type, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so good. And then once you start chasing that becomes your oxygen, those validations, affirmations, whatever, you know, and when something you think you're putting out there for someone, you're like, okay, I know someone's gonna love this, I know it's gonna get picked up and featured, and you just hear crickets, then that reflects negatively on your self-worth. And I went on a very slippery slope a long time. If like I didn't get 300 likes in an hour, this was a failure, I need to delete my piece, and you know, I need to go cry in my closet with my cats for a little bit. And then I've had to switch from it, and it sounds cheesy, but I went to a conference called Summit of Greatness. I'm a big fan of Lewis Howes. You know, I need that personal development, that affirmation, because I come from like a place where I didn't get it growing up, so I had to be my own cheerleader. And that's why the show is like, it's a lot for me too, to work out through my own shit of anxiety, depression, you know, imposter syndrome, the comparison trap. And so I pour into it to hopefully someone, you know, it can hit on my 5 years ago when I was lost, you know, hopefully you can get in that position, you can bypass the obstacles I had to go in. But instead of chasing the glory now, again, chasing the impact. And that's why I do the coaching. Like, if I can put out a message and get one person that they were just like, holy shit, like you spoke to me on that, that fuels me. And now that my son's born, I'm like, holy crap, this is like a whole new level of focus and being intentional, because you got 168 hours in the week, you got 40 hours in your day job. You should be sleeping 8 hours a night, but that doesn't happen with me. But you know, like, it's all that, and he creates this filter now in me. It's either a hell yes or it's a hell no. And Good Snake was talking about quitting things, and quitting things that maybe I've always known, but once I realized, like, chasing the impact, where do I make the biggest impact that aligns with what I'm most passionate about and what I'm most talented about? And it all kept coming back to like the podcast and the idea of coaching people, because I have a coaching football background. How could I marry, you know, creativity with coaching? And at the beginning of the year, I'm like, okay, I need to like kill stuff. I can't do my online shop anymore, fulfillment, like the shipping fulfillment, all this. It's like, it's not
Right.
It's not serving the greater good. It's taking time away from my family. Freelance, I stopped doing freelance this year, and that was my breadwinner. So I'm like, how can I be open to the universe for more opportunities to come my way? How can I attract a different form of finances? And that's all of a sudden like product collaborations or affiliate marketing, you know, or like sponsors of the podcast. So like new things came into play, and like the coaching program I just launched. So like that's what fuels me. Instead of chasing the impact, I want to encourage you, or instead of chasing the glory, I want to encourage you to just try and chase the impact. You know, what can you do to make an impact on just one person at a time? And that's how you're going to build an online audience. That's how you're going to grow your tribe. Kevin Kelly's, 1,000 True Fans. Like that's what I'm going for. I just want to make a living doing what I love to do. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to go on Ellen, even though Ellen, what's up? Have me on. That'd be dope. But like
Please, Ellen.
that's it. So it's like the external and the internal is the fear based. So I grew up being scared of a lot of things. I almost said no to this because it scared me so bad. I've never done this. It's always been in my office at home, which really is just our last converted bedroom that I convinced my wife to let me turn into a studio. So, you know, I almost said no to this, and this is like one of the most growing opportunities that I've had in my life. And now I feel like, fuck, I could go do a live podcast anywhere. So those are things.
Scott,
Like, chase the
you're
things
awesome,
that scare you.
dude. You're awesome.
We are all awesome. You guys are all awesome. Yes, but like that's the feeling. I'm rambling right now, but that's it. That's
Let
what
it out.
lights it up. That's what lights me up. So here's the homework. So imagine here you are right now, but where do you want to be exactly a year from now here at Creative Works 2020? What drives you? Internal, external. What's going to help you get through those days when you're not motivated to create outside your day job? What's the shit that's going to light you up that you're stoked to wake up early and work on before you go to work? Like I thrive in the mornings before I go to my day job. That's my willpower time. That's where I create. What's going to help you show up when it's not convenient? And again, smart hustle, get sleep, take care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. Like take care of your body. You can't pour from an empty cup. So where do you want to be exactly a year from now? I would like this to be your kind of like aha moment. Have that vision of what you want. And how are you going to get there? Once you know what you want, you got to know what you want. Otherwise, you're just going to show up guessing it and winging it each day. And you're going to be spinning your wheels, never catching traction. So know what you want and make that game plan to go and get it. And tap into those internal and external sources. So when you're here for the next couple days, listening to what these incredible souls have to say, like start marinating it and find what is your fire, what drives you, what's your fuel. And that's why this podcast is creative fuel for your mind and grind. Like that's what this is about. And really tap into that moving forward. Because I would love to hear a story, like maybe next year you're on stage here. When I was here in 2017, I was like, man, I would love to be on that stage. And it took 2 years, and you know, I'm here now, but I caught a little glimpse of my vision. Once you can catch a little glimpse of your future potential, that's where waking up early or working on your lunch break so you get 2 10-minute breaks in a day, or you know, you got an hour after you put your kid down to sleep. Like that's where working on the stuff that is important to you, that's where it comes into play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Thank you. I talk about this a lot on the podcast.
It was beautiful.
but,
It was.
So again, positive affirmations are huge for me. And at the end of every episode, where are we at on time? Okay, 4:01. At the end of every episode, I leave it off with just something empowering, and it's more for me, a message for me too, but I'm hoping it like really instills some inspiration for you too to go and start taking yourself more seriously in your side hustle or your freelance career. So at the end of every episode, I'm just like, and this is what I want to say to you too, so I want to encourage you to keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and keep creating. You got this.
Thanks again for listening. It'd be awesome if you took the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let the comment below so we can connect. Again, if you want to catch a shout out as a future listener of the week, make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes and give it a rating and review.